Morning, Coach.
Morning.
As I was explaining to folks this time of year, you end up with coaches or front office personnel or players who they say that they aren't superstitious, they're a little stitious. How stitious are you when it comes to this time of year, when it comes to your rituals and locking everything in place? Do you do the same things? If something works, do you stick with it? Or is it just, we are where we are?
Morning, John. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Sure.
We try to stay pretty true to what we're doing. We'll follow a similar format that we followed last Thursday, which was our last session. We did, you got to change a few things here. Like we would have initially trained on a Thursday and given the players off on a Friday and come out to play on Saturday. But we elected to give them off today and train tomorrow, partially because of some of the USL things. They were coming in to do promo stuff and all that. But we'll stick with the same format and kind of what we do, add a couple small things. There's little things, I guess, maybe I didn't even think about it until you said that, but we got like some new gear for prior to, but I told the team we're going to warm up in our same things and what have you. So, I mean, there's a few things we'll tweak, but for the most part, we try to stay the same.
I was going to say, and I don't refer to it as superstition myself. I refer to it as ritual because it's the same thing that you've done over and over and over again. And to me, that's it's ritualistic. It's not necessarily superstitious unless you believe in those kinds of things. Are you superstitious at all? Or is it just, superstitions for you are just kind of like, yeah, I'm going to put you over here and I don't worry about it?
No, I don't think I really am superstitious. I think I'm probably more in the ritual side, like you said. And I believe in the things that we've done that works. And if they don't work, I get rid of it, scrap it, and try to change it. But for the most part, I don't think I'm superstitious.
All right. So are there any of the players that do they sit there? Do they wear the same boots? Do they wear the same do they wear the same shirt at practice every day, or is everybody just kind of like, yeah, I'm going to go out there and do my thing and whatever happens, happens?
Yeah. I mean, when you got a group, diverse, different groups of personalities coming from different worlds, different backgrounds, what have you, there's always going to be something, but nothing that's blown me away. I mean, you've got few kids that have gone through the same boots and, you got to tell them, the ref might not let you wear those. Just time to put some new ones on, they think they'll try to tape them up or some that just believe in putting one sock on before the other one all the time, but nothing that's just blown me away that I haven't seen. So.
All right, so let's get into what is happening this weekend. Playoff bracket. You're coming out of the upper right for those that were filling in brackets from the absolute beginning, and it's Tennessee SC, and we've known what Coach Fisher and them have been able to do and build this season. So break down the matchup and what happened to get you into the last two of the year.
Yeah, they were very organized. They made it very difficult for you to beat them in the half spaces or around the outside corners, what have you. Pretty athletic. They had a set game plan coming into it. You could tell, again, just like we did on them. They watched film and video and was going to make it difficult. I felt like they had some very good players going forward when they tried to break on the counter. But I felt what we did was, a lot of teams that we play that way against us. It's just going to be a matter of each round, the quality of the players you play against gets better, obviously. So, we kind of had a mindset of the way it may look coming into the game. I felt like we handled it quite well. I felt where we weren't great on the day, which hadn't been the same throughout the playoffs and most of the season, was in our final phase. We got a lot of good positions, just didn't do a good job with the service, the cross, or the finish wasn't, accurate enough or what have you. So the game was pretty tight as far as score line and what have you until I think the 92nd minute. And we unfortunately gave up a penalty and they scored it. And, we went to overtime and I could tell that there were some of the gamesmanship starting to go on as far as a little bit of time wasting, what have you. And we weren't playing for penalties. We wanted to try to get the game done if we could during the time in. And we were lucky enough to have a player step up and score a worldie of a goal in injury time. So it was a little pretty more stressful than we needed it to be, but it was a great game to have going into the final.
That was probably one of the best undersells I've heard in quite some time about the goal that was scored, because for those that don't know the story, it's a familiar face for Coach Davis, who scored that goal that ended up advancing them to the title game. And you've known this person for 17 years, I believe.
Yeah.
And so let me ask, it was your daughter, Siri. And I'm underselling it now too. But when you have a moment like that, where your daughter scores a goal that is that important and you're the head coach, and it gets you to a title game that you're going to host. You can sleep in your own bed. Folks from Fort Collins, Colorado have to hop a flight out of Denver and make their way to the Triangle. What is it like for you as a dad to see a moment like that? Or are you a coach? Do you have a dad moment on the sideline? Or are you still a coach until the whistle blows? How does that work?
Yeah, it's funny. It kind of gives me chills just you describing it, because it's a moment that you just don't expect. You never know if you'll have one of those. Obviously, I'm lucky enough to coach her, and we're in a situation where it's a good relationship in our coaching relationship. She's not a type of player that struggles with it, and the moment itself was pretty remarkable for any player. But with that being said, she's a defensive midfielder, so she doesn't score a ton of goals. And she's a youth player. So, my expectations was she was going to possibly get about, when I put her in, maybe like 20, 25 minutes, because, we were hoping we could lock the game down and not have to go to overtime, but we did. I did have a dad moment for about 10, 15 seconds, maybe. I just couldn't believe it. I was just as excited and blown away as everybody else. But then after I kind of gathered myself, I realized, one of the last times we scored a pretty quality goal early on the season against Tormenta, they scored right after, within, I think, a minute and a half. So I had to tune back in and get the team, mentally set. And one of the good things I saw about that when I watched the video was Heather, our other, our player assistant, Heather O'Reilly, she straight away started getting the team kind of mentally check back in. But to be honest, John, it really hit me more a day or two later. And one of my old college teammates was talking to me about it, and he said, that's just a moment that you'll be able to talk about with your daughter for years. And, it's really cool because you just never know if you'll ever have those. So.
All right. So let me see if I've got the emotional timeline here. She scored, your coach, you send her in, your coach. So you're thinking, okay, maybe a couple of minutes, then you go to OT, you're still coach. She scores as a 6, I would imagine. Mm-hmm. Then you go dad for 10 or 15 seconds. Then you're like, okay, we're not done. I've got to go back to being a coach. Then you get final whistle. Do you go back to dad, or do you still have coach and then go through post-game talk and then go back to dad? How do we go back from dad to coach to dad here? What's the curve?
Yeah, dad first, obviously, when she went in. And I remember we talked about it yesterday, probably about 3 minutes into the game when she was in. She didn't go in for a tackle, and the girl beat her, and I lit into her. And so it was coach, and then, she scores the goal, and it was dad for like a few seconds. And then I went back to coach, and then I looked down the sideline, and all the girls are going crazy, yelling at me, saying, "That's Siri, that's Siri." So there was like a little 2-3 second dad moment again, and then back to coach. And then at the end of the game, I kind of stayed away from her to let her have her time, because, she was talking to everybody and she was glowing and buzzing. And so her and I really didn't have the dad-daughter moment until we got in the car, because she rode there with me and back, which she typically doesn't do. And we talked about it. And, and then I had a moment in the car when I was on the phone with our youth CEO, Gary Butte. And he and I were chatting, whatever, and he was just so excited for her, because I've known Gary for 20 plus years, and a good friend of mine. And he talked about it. So it gave me more dad moments with her, just hearing him talk, because, all of his kids have gone through the game, and he has one right now that's finished up at NC State. So he's had a lot of those. So it was very cool. And the timeline was kind of, like I said, up and down. But right after the game, I stayed away from her for a while to let her have her moments with her team and fans and stuff like that. So
you mentioned a name of one of your assistant coaches, and I wanted to ask about this.
Sure.
And yes, Heather O'Reilly is that Heather O'Reilly. For folks that are wondering, it's like, yes, he did say Heather O'Reilly. What's it like having HOR as a part of your staff and having that kind of a a listening post and someone that you can bounce ideas off of, and have her bounce ideas off of you about the day-to-day and what it have to do in key situations like that? What's it like having HOR around?
Yeah, I mean, but just before we kind of get into that, I do want to mention also that my first assistant Nick, he's been fantastic. He's been with me all 3 years, and he's but I think he was kind of in the moment like me at that time. So having Heather, it's different from a standpoint. The coaching thing doesn't blow me away because Heather's still cutting her teeth. She's still going through her licensing. She's still working her way through the world and that side of things. So it doesn't blow me a bit away. But what blows me away about Heather, a couple of things. One, she's down to earth. She's easy to talk to. She's as whatever normal means in this world. She's still a normal person based on her accomplishments. And I think one of the worst things you can see is when people allow their accomplishments to put them where they feel like they're elevated as human beings above others. And that's what Heather doesn't do. I think the big thing for Heather is any and everything that any player has ever done or wants to do, Heather's been there and done that. She can see the game. I think she's starting to see the game as a coach more, but as a player, she has a perspective that nobody in our organization, maybe with the exception of Cindy Parlow-Cone, that have. So Heather, when she's a player coach, I haven't played her in a ton of games this year, but when she trains at a level that's even our top ACC kids on our team, I still think don't come close to replicating. Heather is a winner in her mindset. She believes in winning. And, that's, you look at what we've done over the last few years, that's great to have that mindset. And then just, it's funny. I think a lot of the kids are now just past saying Heather O'Reilly, at training. They're realizing that Heather is in some regards one of them. And she's just, for me, I think it's crazy when kids don't utilize her knowledge and everything that she knows about being a high level player and human being.
When was the last time North Carolina Courage lost a match?
National finals this time last year.
How long has that stuck with you?
I mean, obviously I think about it because, we traveled, was in overtime. Lauren Martino, who unfortunately we lost early in the year with a torn ACL. Lauren in the first game of the year, actually. Lauren, put it level for us. And then the goal that we conceded was kind of it was against a team that had a few former NWSL players. And, we had a fairly young team. And I felt like their experience put them over the top, and their fan base and environment. It didn't stick with me from a standpoint of being bitter. I felt like the game could have gone either way. I don't want to necessarily say the better team won, but the better team in a couple key moments, I think, won the game. Yeah. For me, it wasn't about that. Obviously, our conference changed. We had new teams. We went to a different the Eastern Conference, so I didn't know what to expect. I felt like I wanted to do a better job of putting together a team that could, believe it or not, John, score more goals than we did last year. Yeah. And if we got in these situations that we had a few players that could create a few more goals on their own, I felt like we did do that to a certain degree. And I just felt like, as I watched us play, we were giving ourselves a chance to try to get back to where we wanted to get. And so that was the big thing for me. It wasn't bitterness. It was just, okay, what can we do to be a little bit better than last year?
So now Colorado Storm is traveling from one end of the planet to the other. And how much tape have you seen? Are you just kind of putting it off to the side? Are you looking at general tendencies? Are you pouring into it? Are you in the catacombs there in Cary looking, like on a sub basement on an old film projector looking at Colorado Storm? How does this work?
Yeah, I would imagine Storm is just like us. We're watching quite a bit of film. I kind of broke it down and gave my assistants prior games of theirs to watch through the playoffs, and I've watched their last one multiple times, and we just kind of cut it. I try to be really intelligent on how much of that I let the players see, because sometimes players will watch a game of a team and say, oh, they're not that good, and you just never know till you get on the field. Storm has some top players. They've had a top season. Their coaching staff seems to have a real professional mindset, and I think a lot of them come out of a club that has a professional mindset. So I think that they've done a good job in putting that group together. But for me, yeah, I've watched a good bit of film. So has my assistants, and we cut certain things and show the kids some of it. You know, we film our training and cut down training and show the kids, here's where things went well. Here's where things weren't in line with the tactics we're trying to set. In fact, I was doing that right before I got on with you. And, you know, we told the players, we will try to treat this as professional and as close to maybe their college environment, whatever their college environment looked like, as we can, or better. So they can feel like this wasn't a wasted summer for them.
Kickoff 6 o'clock. And if you are in the vicinity, and I'm talking area codes, drop by, because admission is free to get in the door as Courage is hosting Colorado Storm in the USL-W League final, and it is at the WRAL Soccer Park Stadium. That's a part of that massive complex that you guys have. What else did I miss in the promo that folks need to know about this matchup with you and Colorado Storm as you're one match away from winning a title?
Yeah, I mean, I think arguably the two best teams in the country have found their way into the national final. And, you know, it's I think the brands are the way they play is fairly similar. So, you know, we hope to put on a show and, you know, have a great event for everybody.
All right. Well, thanks for coming in. I know it's a busy as you know what week for you as you are prepping and trying to make sure that you guys are as ready as possible. Thanks for coming on. I know that coaches, once again, they like to do this, and I know that I'm going to get hit by coaches in USL League 2 and the NPSL. I know they're coming because they're on the show, they win, and they're like, okay, when can we come on again? I know how this works. Good luck this weekend. Thanks for dropping by. Don't stare at monitors too long. You start looking like me, and you don't want to do that.
Thanks, John. I appreciate the time, and have a good one.